everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Jams and Tea podcast. We spin the jams and spill the tea. And today we are coming at you with a brand new episode where we talk about the world of music and music news and more.
And more. And that we emphasize the more part because we're going to lead off today talking about the Oscar nominations, which dropped recently, probably a bit further back by the time you're watching this, considering there's a wee bit of an editing backlog. But still, let's talk about it. It's a surprisingly good year for the Oscars, like a really stacked selection. Of course, this is the thing. I mean, I'm not to get on this, all pro Academy or anything, but I kind of do think that the Academy are in a position where they can't really win because this is with very little exception a fantastic selection of major nominees. And yet you're still going to have some bullshit discourse that's dominated Twitter that doesn't matter. That is also like misrepresents the general consensus as well because it's just a small number of loud voices creating a whole, perception of something greater. But yeah, my point being, I think that, the Academy have delivered a really strong selection of nominees this year. A few of the major categories even being a situation where it's hard to even foresee a potential outcome that would be disappointing, except for maybe Bradley Cooper. Um,
That is the only
but
option that could happen where I feel like everyone would be upset.
yeah, but I'm kind of low key. I would kind of low key be rooting for that just for the chaos of it, and because there's a deep rooted part of me that wants more than anything else to see Bradley Cooper's acceptance speech. I just want to see, and not even the speech
Don't
itself, because the
don't
speech
don't make
itself,
Bradley Cooper the Macklemore of the Oscars.
well, the speech itself would
Don't
probably
do that.
the speech itself would probably wouldn't even be that interesting, but just more the shit posts, the memes, the projection, all of the shit that would happen online if Bradley Cooper won, I think would be hilarious. So
Prosthetic nose going viral.
so that's my kind of low key chaos pick. But I mean, what do you guys think? What are you guys hoping will win the big awards? Like what are your picks?
Am I kind of a sick bastard if I just think it would be cool if Poor Things or Zone of Interest took it? Because like that's the chaos pick that I want, where it simultaneously will piss a lot of people off and B, give a fucking weirdo the award. Because Jonathan Glazer and Yorgos Lanthimos being like Oscar frontrunners is still kind of insane to me.
Yeah.
And particularly like those are two movies that totally deserve to be where they are. And also it would just like it would get them, it would be like the Parasite effect where it's just like if we get more people to see a Jonathan Glazer or Yorgos Lanthimos movie, that's just an unequivocal good for the world. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like they won't win probably, but like, Killers of the Flower Moon, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Let's go. Absolutely.
I'm not I'm so
Oppenheimer sweep.
yeah,
That is
Yeah,
Oppenheimer's
what is
gonna
going to
Oppenheimer
happen.
will
that
Oppenheimer will likely sweep everything. We say this knowing this ahead of time.
yeah. I with the poor things
Deservedly.
with the poor things zone of interest situation, I agree. They're kind of surprising nominations. Well, like they're surprising that they've received such a sweep of nominations. Poor things maybe less so because it's I think benefited from the fact that The Favorite was such a success and
Yeah, it's
with
even the
in the
same
award season.
screenwriter as The Favorite, as well as
But
like the Stone
Oh,
Lanthimos pairing.
yeah. But Zone of Interest for sure. That's one of the few that I haven't yet seen. I'm going to be seeing it as
me
soon
either.
as it opens here. But yeah, especially someone like Glazer as well, who just has not really made all that many movies, and his last movie was like a really kind of, underperforming cult hit sort of situation. So
11 years ago.
yeah,
God bless.
our friend Zach has already made this comparison as well, but it really feels like a kind of Michael Haneke moment, with Amour, back in I think it was like 10
Right.
or 12 years ago. It was like
Mm-hmm.
a director who's not, generally amenable to the kind of sensibilities that the Academy go for, make some movie that ticks the right boxes. Usually, in this instance, it handling being a historical movie, handling the Holocaust, that's a pretty strong gateway towards Oscar buzz. But even with Haneke, that was even more of a bizarro thing because it was just like a moody two-person character drama. So, Morgan, I know you've got opinions, TM. What are your takes on the nominees and what are you hoping will win in the big categories?
my favorite Best Picture nomination is Flower Moon, but Oppenheimer is very closely behind it, and the immense likelihood that it will sweep nearly every major category, if not all of the categories it's nominated for, because it's such a triumph of a movie and Nolan's best work.
Agreed.
This idea pleases me. Something I had the realization of earlier today is that there is an immense likelihood that after this particular ceremony, Billie Eilish will have more Oscars than Martin Scorsese. Um,
Yeah.
Hey, look,
Oh,
we
I
we
think this is a pretty solid lock for Billy's victory, frankly.
yeah. We haven't really talked about this, but I went and listened to that song this week. What was I made for? That is an incredible song.
it's a
That
very good song.
It's
I
really
can't fault
good.
it.
So credit to Billie Eilish for being someone who may well break Scorsese's total, but will also do it deservingly. Um,
She
she's
will
someone
have
who's
as many Oscars as she has #1 albums, and she's not even our age.
she's someone who has managed to have this continued level of really high tier success without kind of compromising in any way the sort of artistic vision that she cultivated very early on. And of course, to some degree, it's just a product of how easily and smoothly like various different generations and primarily the older generation who have a lot of this sort of power have resonated with her as a pop culture figure and kind of given her that prestige. But the way that she's risen to that and not in a single way or to a single degree kind of compromised on who she is as an artist is really, really amazing. So yeah, I'd be reading for that for sure.
Gladstone for Best Actress. I mean, like, not that she doesn't have great competition, but I mean, I think that this is pretty much like a, set in stone, hand her the award already kind of deal. Like, she's
She
deserving. People love her. She's pretty much the most overwhelmingly popular pick in the category. So,
she's
fingers
got it in the
crossed.
bag. I'm in an interesting position with this one because uh she should win. She will win. She deserves to win. It would be a significant win and an important win in a lot of different ways. It is
Oh,
also
yeah.
probably my third favorite performance in that
Whew.
list. And I've actually, to
What
Yeah,
be
else we got?
fair,
We got Emma Stone. Emma
yeah,
Stone's in there too.
yeah, Emma Stone would be my second, and I would put Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall as would be my personal
The,
choice.
yeah.
But
all of
Hooler
those
is
great
like
picks.
I was having this conversation with my dad a couple days ago. I think the day that these nominees came out, and I was like, you know, it's definitely the ideal outcome for Gladstone to win.
yeah, for sure.
I frankly don't think it's even in the same league of performance as Huller in Anatomy of a
Ooh.
Fall, who just like makes it look effortless.
It's kind of, as these things sometimes tend to do when they acquire a certain level of prestige, and as jarring as it can seem, it's kind of become a little bit of a meme online. That major scene between her and I can't even remember the name of the guy who plays the husband in that movie, but their argument scene. It's one of those things where it's like
The
I've watched
titular
that
fall.
so many times. I have basically all the dialogue memorized down to the inflections, and
The
there was a
Driver Johansson phenomenon.
yeah, I've even like if you read the script of that scene, it's great dialogue, but reading the script of it and then watching the scene itself, I think is a really great exercise and realizing just how much a great actor brings to even great writing because when it's on the page, if you're just reading it internally, it doesn't you can't really predict the way that Sandra Hüller goes with that dialogue, and it's true for her performance throughout the whole film. It's so, it's so demanding and gripping and unassailable, but also so idiosyncratic and characterful. Um, but yes, Lily will win, and it'll be a great historical Oscars moment. I'm sure that, checks notes Annette Bening in Naiad and Carrie Mulligan in Maestro. I'm sure they're good performances too. I actually have heard that Carrie Mulligan's very good in Maestro, but I'm sure they've all practiced their faces for the cutaway. I'm sure they've all got them down point 100%.
On the Anatomy of a Fall note, like I know that like director is basically like, it's Nolan, Marty, or bust basically, and even then saying that there's a competition between the two implies that Nolan has even like slightly less of a chance than he actually does. Like Nolan's probably gonna win.
Yeah.
But if Nolan doesn't win, Marty's probably gonna win. I'm not upset with either of those, frankly. But again, if I get to be in my sick bastard mode, Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall would be a really cool pick, like a cool sneak pick, I think here, like a, Olivia Colman, the favorite kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah.
everybody kind of secretly wants it to happen, but we don't really know if it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to talk about or just mention is two more like minor technical things. One being a pretty egregious snub in my opinion, and one being one that I totally didn't expect to make it in and that I hope ends up winning. That being for visual effects, Godzilla -1 made it in, which please God take it. I have never seen like I've never cared more about a visual effects Oscar because Jesus Christ, that movie deserves it. If not just for it winning the one thing it's nominated for, but like if you've seen that movie and you've seen that it cost $15 million, that's an absurd notion. Hope it wins. For me, best original score not going to Daniel Pemberton for Spider-Verse is kind of, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, guys. It's like you got to at least include my man here for that one. That I think his work with that is utterly exceptional. I think it tops even the first movie's truly exceptional score, which I also listen to all the time. It's one of those few scores that I think is strong enough to actually stand on its own and that I listen to rather frequently. So a little disappointed that didn't do it, but
Yeah. Okay. It's like three things to pick up on there. With the score, I probably agree that he should have been nominated as well. I would say because I'm the kind of person who thinks that it's more interesting to have a varied field, especially of newer faces than maybe the best field. I would probably, I haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. John Williams, obviously a legend. I don't think he needs to be
Get rid of
here.
it. Get
Yeah,
it out
okay.
of
he
there.
doesn't
Yeah.
he doesn't need
So,
it.
but my pick would 100% be Robbie Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon. To me, that score
Oh,
is
I think Killers should take it for the record. I completely agree.
that score is incredible. I think I probably said on the show
Hmm.
once or twice that I have listened to that on occasion as an album, and it really holds up. And
Hmm.
obviously there's a sentimentality factor there as well. Robbie passed away. It would be, a nice moment to have that kind of posthumous Oscar thing. But I do genuinely believe it's an incredible score. Obviously, it'll probably be, Ludwig Göransson that takes it for Oppenheimer. Again, a great score as well. I also will
Also
shout out.
fantastic.
I also will shout out Erskine Fendrix's score for Poor Things, which I think that if that weren't already such an Oscar buzzed film for, God knows what reason, it probably wouldn't be nominated. And I'm glad it is because it's a really unique score. Like it's got
Just
so
word.
much flavor and character and strangeness, but also this real beauty to it as well. Like it's really eerie throughout the movie. And then you get to the end credits and you just find yourself weeping. It's so beautiful. Like it's such a dynamic score. Yeah, I saw Poor Things earlier this week. I was
I
completely
still need
taken
to.
with it. I was like in love. I'm in love with this movie. It completely, it's my second favorite Lanthimos, I think. Really resonated with me on a really sort of deep and personal level. Morgan, what are your thoughts on some of these other bigger Oscars, like the Best Director and the acting kind of crop?
Yeah, I think as usual, the lead actress and actor categories are kind of absurd. Aside from the obvious winners that we have this year, it's like why is Bradley Cooper here? Coleman Domingo, I like very much as an actor. No one alive has seen the movie he's nominated for, so it
I don't even know
can't
what
help
he's nominated for.
it can't help but feel a little bit like a diversity pick for lead actress. I love Annette Bening. Who saw this movie? Where did this even come from?
Have you seen
Uh,
She'll be accepting it for 20th century women.
have you seen the poster of this movie?
no.
Oh,
No?
I just looked
What
it
is
up.
it?
I just Googled it. Uh, Just the fucking expression on
That's
her face.
hysterical.
So good. And
What the fuck?
what is
It
Jodie
just gets
Foster
funnier the
doing?
more I look at it. Why is she framed like she's the shark fin in Jaws?
It's so good.
I do want to just remark that a couple interesting things, just because we are a music podcast, and we mentioned the Billie Eilish thing already for best or for best song. That category is very interesting because one of the songs nominated is from a Netflix documentary, and one of the people nominated is Dan Wilson. If
Yeah.
you recognize that name, that is Dan Wilson of Semisonic, of Closing Time, and Adele's Major Hits fame, which it would be very, very funny if this very notorious one-hit wonder guy managed to nab an Oscar. That's just funny. And also the nomination, the sole nomination for the picture Flamin' Hot, about the creation of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, which has a song from Diane Warren in it. And the only reason I know who Diane Warren or this song is because our friend Cole watched this movie the other day and talked about this song, and I went and listened to it, and it is the middest shit I have ever heard. Why is this nominated? This movie isn't even based on like fact. Like, it's a bullshit fake story about the invention of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. What's happening?
Well, the Academy literally have like Cheeto dust on their fingers from all of the hand pocket. It's a joke. It didn't really. You get it. Let's move on from the Oscars now and talk about some music. Let's start off with some bad music. Let's start off with
Oh boy.
at time of recording, which will of course be a lot earlier than when this goes up. This song dropped a few hours ago, so it's
Mm-hmm.
hot off the presses for us, but you guys, it's probably long gone in the discourse cycle for you. But just we might have missed it entirely. But if and in case you did,
Hopefully you did.
legendary white boy rapper Tom MacDonald teamed
White,
up with
white
teamed
boy.
up with none other than big honcho wet ass p word himself, Ben
Yes, wet
Shapiro,
ass P word.
for their collaborative single Facts. And here's what I have to say about this song. In terms of Tom MacDonald, it is pure Tom MacDonald, what you expect from him if you've heard any single one of his songs, to the point where he's like not even just doing the same bits, but he's saying the same lines he said before. It's really boring, obvious, anti-woke, doing it pronouns bullshit. It's so he's boring as shit. The only reason this is worth talking about is the fact that Ben Shapiro does rap on this song. And it
I
is,
thought rap wasn't music, Ben, according to your dad who taught music theory.
yeah. I think he still believes that, and I think
Oh,
he
unquestionably.
gets a real kick out of the fact that he's doing this regardless. But what's so I hasten to use the word enjoyable, but certainly what gave me mirth from hearing this was the fact that it's if you haven't heard it, imagine you heard what Ben Shapiro rapping sounds like. It's exactly that. It's like it doesn't even sound like Ben Shapiro showed up to rap on this. It sounds like Tom has fed these lines into Ben Shapiro voice AI generator and just taken the MP3 of that and just thrown it into the mix. That's what it sounds like. You would be forgiven for thinking that if not for the fact that there is a music video and Ben has shown up, hoodie on with the hood up, looking real gangster like it's 1987, and he's delivering these bars. I mean, let me just, because I have to, because I have to.
One of my favorite little tidbits about that many people don't know about Tom MacDonald is that he's a fucking manlet. Dude's like 5'5" on a good day. So he and Ben Shapiro being on this track, this is a white boy short king anthem.
Yeah. Most of his height comes from the fact that his head's built like a rugby ball. So yeah. So anyway,
Oh
yeah, he looks
God.
like the aliens in the X-Files. Like, okay, let's let me just read you some of Ben's
For this wet
bars
ass P word.
because I gotta do it. You know I gotta do it. I gotta do it to him. So here we go. Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo. My pockets are fat. Get it? Homie, I'm epic. He says homie. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a wap. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You're going to prison. I'm on television. Dog, no one knows who you are. They do that line together. It's really cute. Keep hating me on the internet. My comment section all woke Karens. My favorite line is this next one. I make racks off of compound interest. Y'all live with your parents. The way he makes that in a Creed weird do. It's a lot funny when he says it. Nikki takes some notes. I just did this for fun. All my people download this. Let's get a Billboard #1. It's really funny that Bean's image of how to get a Billboard #1 in 2024 is from downloads. Like people will still, and again, I think the target audience for this song are absolutely people who are going to rack this up by buying it on iTunes.
That's
100.
that's been a trend lately. That's how Oliver Anthony got popular last year, is from conservative hate buying. It's like a
Yeah.
trend now.
Yeah, he's making the money off the downloads, 100%. Um, so yeah, it's a song that exists, and I'm conscious of the fact that in giving it airtime like this as well, I'm really just giving Ben and Tom what they want. But it's really fucking stupid, and I can't not acknowledge it.
You're not giving them what they want though, is because like Tom MacDonald has only ever had one purpose as an artist, and that's to piss people off. That's his entire shtick, is that he's still doing the same thing he was 5 years ago, except he's updating his language and his terminology to be more like, oh, I have to hate whatever the woke people hate. Blah, blah, blah,
I
blah,
think
blah. It's the same shit. Like it's funny. Like it's not even harmful anymore. You're just laughing at them.
I think the real takeaway for me from this is it's a real insight into just how sycophantic Tom is. Like he
Oh
did
yeah.
when I looked this up, I saw that he did an interview with Ben like 8 months ago. So it's very
Hmm.
clear to me that Tom has been angling for this, and like I'm sure Ben did it because he wanted to. But the really funny thing is just how clearly legitimized Tom and energized Tom is by Ben's presence. He even says on the song that I ask myself, what would Ben do? And it's like, bro, could you be sucking this man's dick any harder if you try? Could you be on your knees, just fucking, you know,
For
death
being
grip?
so anti-woke, you're pretty fucking gay, my man.
He has this line he keeps coming back to as well, and it's like his hook in the song, and it makes no sense. If you want my pronouns, I'm the man. I'm the man that don't respect you. What is there supposed to be wordplay there? Like, is there
I'm
supposed to
I
be
am
subversion there?
begging I'm begging conservatives to learn the definition of the word pronouns so we can move on from this. It's not just a thing that people made up. It's a word that has existed in the English language terminology for fucking 100 years now. Just like stop.
There are only two pronouns, man and woman.
Ah.
Tom always gives the game away early. Like, it's not even 4 bars into the song where he's saying freaking instead of fucking because he can't swear. And it's like
Uh,
by that point, you've foregone, any kind of legitimacy. Or not even legitimacy, but just any kind of like coolness that you're angling for. And it's not that swearing makes you cool. It's just that you're someone who built your entire identity around not capitulating to the woke liberals, and yet you refuse to say the word fuck to make that point. As if it's belongs to the woke people, as if fuck is a word that the liberals made up that we can't use. Like the lines are so like disentangled from one another. The song starts, they call me offensive, controversial. There's only two genders, boys and girls. It's like you need to be writing in a way where thoughts make sense. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. Good moment here. He's like pro-choice, pronouns, pro-love. You're progressives, but you ain't pro-gun, so there's no one to protect it. The point he's trying to make being like, all of this philosophy, all of this ideology you have means nothing. It's like, bro, you can't shoot ideology. You can't beat up ideology. You can't shame ideology. You know what I
And
mean?
ideas are bulletproof.
So that's that. Jake, I want to throw to you now because I know you've listened to an album recently from one of from another of our great white rappers, someone
The Great
who,
White Hope,
the
even.
Great White Hope indeed. Why don't you tell us about this new album from Lil Dicky and your experience with it?
You might know this man from his previous outing into the musical world, which is his debut record, Professional Rapper, which is an album that's entirely about Lil Dicky saying, I'm lame, I'm white, I wish I could say the N-word, my dick game is trash, I'm bad at things, and it's like an hour long. Now we have, at the beginning of this year, we have his new album, which comes from his hit 3-season long show on FX, Dave, also known as The White Atlanta. I haven't watched this show because I value my time.
No,
So
you listen to a Lil
this
Dicky album. You do not.
I was about to say not enough to
all
avoid
I'm gonna say is that an
Penith.
hour listening to an album is not like 36 hours watching like 40 episodes of a television show. So let's not let's give me a little credit
Yeah, but there's
because
you could do one episode and it's like half the length of the album.
it this album, Penith, which yes, the lisp is in the title. It's like penis and zenith.
Oh, I get it. Like he's at his
Yeah,
he's at his Penith.
well, really, what it's supposed to be is that in one of the songs here, one of the lyrical refrains is, "I heard my grandpa say penith." And you know how I said that Professional
That
Rapper
the
was
is
an
that the point?
album that's entirely about Lil Dicky saying, "I'm bad at rapping. Why don't people take me seriously? My dick game is trash. Women don't like me. I'm a loser. I suck." That's this album. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. Except it's 65 minutes long. It has 4 bonus tracks and let I need to lead this off with something is that I obviously did not go into this album expecting to enjoy it. Again, morbid curiosity is the only thing, and because I didn't listen to those other Little Dicky things, so obviously I didn't like burn myself out on it immediately. But like while listening to this album, I kept coming back to one question: why would someone make this? Because you're listening to it, and I mean like the joke for all 65 minutes of this is that Lil Dicky is lame. Lil Dicky doesn't eat fruits or vegetables. Lil Dicky is a lonely loser who makes a rap song about how much he wants to marry Rachel McAdams and makes a joke about how much about giving head, except it's him giving head, which that happens a lot on this album, is that he jokes about him giving other dudes blowjobs like an awful lot. There is a song where he compares himself to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, except the joke is that he can't compare because he's lame and white and mediocre, and he's not at all like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Do you get the joke? Then there's songs like I'm Drunk that's about him getting drunk, and then he can't have sex, and his dick won't get hard, and he can't have sex with a hot girl, and it won't work. And I'm just thinking, sitting here, like, okay, I'm a comedian, right? I'm a comedian and I want to make music. I want to make people laugh. What's my joke? I do that. Okay, but how is there going to be more than that? Is there going to be more to this in any way? And the only conclusion that I've come to while listening to this album is that this is made by somebody who has a humiliation fetish. Now, I know that sounds hyperbolic, and you're just going to be like, oh, a person on YouTube is using hyperbole to relay how bad an album listening to is. No, I want you, if you're at all curious, to listen to any of the songs from this album and try, actively try to come to any other conclusion other than the person who made this gets some kind of pleasure out of utter abject failure. That has to be the only reason. And not only that, do we have this, like, I mean, there's literally songs on here. My dick sucks. No fruits or vegetables. Going gray. Fucking like Mr. McAdams is the song for Rachel McAdams. Like, do you understand what I'm
Hey, look.
getting with
Hey,
here?
it's not
And
false advertising.
it's not. And you know what the thing is, the crown jewel of this album to me, if I listen to a worse song this year, if I listen to a worse song, hand to God, I will make a full worst to best on the Smashing Pumpkins. Do throw anything at my way, I will do it. If I hear a song worse than the bonus track on this album, Jail Part 1, and you're thinking, what could be so bad that it not only is worse than every other thing on here, but would make you make such a bold declaration? And listener, I'll tell you what makes it so bad. This bonus track is 9 minutes long. It's 9 minutes. Already, some alarms should be going off. But this is Lil Dicky attempting to transplant his sense of humor and make one of the a classic hip hop storytelling song. This is truly his Shook Ones Part 2, if you think about it.
I'm already getting trapped in the closet vibes.
Oh, Jail Part 1, which there's no Part 2. Jail Part 1 is a 9 minute song about Lil Dicky exposing himself during a concert and being arrested for exposing his genitalia to minors and then going to jail. He goes to jail and is then immediately greeted by a chorus of racial stereotypes that Dicky paints that all want to sexually violate him. And the song is about him trying to figure out who he should give head to in the prison so that nobody rapes him. And there is a point on this album where he's just like, everybody's too sensitive these days. And I'm like, how can you, who's just spent an hour of this album talking about how lowly, pathetic, pitiable, and awful you are, and you have the audacity to say that people are too sensitive nowadays when you're basically prostrating yourself before the viewing public and saying, step on me? What is this? Why? Why would you do this? Like, whether or not this is some sort of ironic statement or whether or not it plays better in the context of the show, I don't fucking care. This music is fucking worthless, man. Like, what? It's literally, how do you gentrify Jack Harlow? It's befuddling. I came to, like, there were several crossroads in this track list where I just came to an existential panic and I was just like, why am I doing this? What happened to me? Was I dropped on my head as a
Yeah.
baby? Do I need to ask my mom about residual brain damage? I
You know, I think what we need is we need Pink Guy back, is what I think. Because
dude, please.
every edgy comedy album, like hip hoppy, whatever, every like variant of what this is pales in comparison to Pink Guy's Pink Season, which, don't get me wrong, has plenty of terrible stuff on it. But in terms of the well, there's a hit rate that thing has, but even beyond good or bad, it's just in terms of the commitment and the absurdity of that. It feels like people like Lil Dicky have been chasing that kind of dizzyingly sick comedy rap for so long and just not even remotely remotely appreciating what is enjoyable about that.
Let me close this off by reading a verse from one of the highlights from the album, morning after. She slid her panties to the ankle, made me back up and look at the, wait for it, bussy. Bussy glistening like a heavyweight. You want to fuck me, baby? Haven't showered in a minute, girl. But if you with it, then I'm with it. I will shower you with every curl. Are you freaky, baby? Spooning me like I was soup? Want me to be dirty like a goose? Ooh, but what do you like, baby? Do you want me to choke you? She said, that's okay. That's okay, as in, you want that? Or that's okay, as in, no thanks. She looked at me crazy. I said, I didn't mean to complicate it. Let me grab a condom. I put it on. Then she throws it back. Give me the ass. Pop it. Tickle the breast. Nipple the crack. Stop it. General Custer with the tactics. I'm a demon. I could feel the semen creeping around the penis.
Bravo.
That is genuinely the most creative set of bars on the album.
Yeah, the general custom
I'm
is
done.
good. Ice Spice is back with a new song. This
Speaking of
was
funny songs,
this was a moment from the second it was announced that Ice Spice would be releasing a new single called "Think You This Shit," parenthetical, fart.
I thought
Um,
when you sent that tweet into Discord that
you,
that was one of those fake Pop Crave
yeah, you thought
accounts.
it was Pooh Crave. She's kind of seen through the Matrix because Pooh Crave can't even make a joke about this. No, this
No,
is real. And look, I had to check first before I sent it. I was like, what? But no, and look, as far as Ice Spice goes, I mean, legend in the game already. It's not as if weird, off-kilter, sexual innuendo is new to her. I mean, her biggest song is Munch. She's someone who's really good at making coming up with new ways to be vulgar. Well, not even like new ways, because the whole thing about there's a kind of storied history of rappers having shit bars,
we've talked about it.
dissing by making reference to fecal matter. So it's not as if she's innovating in that sense, but she has a way of sort of making herself stand out by doing things that or using language or oh my god, I'm gonna start sounding like a 2014 era pitchfork writer here. Step back. She's not Young Thug.
Ice Spice's
Um,
new single "Goop on You Grinch" displays a fundamental understanding of the inner workings of society.
look, she just surprises me regularly, all right? And think you this shit is surprising on multiple levels. The biggest of which being it's kinda a banger. It's
Dude,
kinda
the drums on this song are so hard, and for what reason? Like
yeah.
they sound like this sounds like a beat that they would come up with like on a clipping song. It
Mm.
sounds enormous.
Ice Spice is someone as an artist of limited talents, I would say. She has the same flow on the song that she has on basically all of her
Uh-huh.
songs. Da-ba-da-ba-da,
Hmm.
da-ba-da-ba-da, da-ba-da-da. It's but she's really good at that one thing that she does. And she's an artist. I don't know if I will ever I'm sure someday she will put out an album. I'm sure I will listen to it. I don't
Hmm.
think she'll ever be the kind of artist I look forward to a record
An
from,
album artist.
but that it's a good moment to kind of dwell on the fact that artists can be great even if they don't excel in that format. And Ice Spice is someone I really, really enjoy in small doses, which is the way that she's presented herself. She's someone who comes
Hmm.
along every few months with a song. It's ridiculous. People make fun of it. She completely floats above all of that making fun. I mean, she got the internet completely dogpiled her in a really kind of, quite vaguely racist way, I would say, for Munch. And
Racist, misogynist, take your pick.
and she's just kind of, glided over all of it. None of it has even touched her. So the fact that she, is someone who gets made fun of a lot by, holier than thou music nerds and still, barrels forward putting out songs called things like I Think You the Shit, parenthetical fart. I mean, the
Fart.
parenthetical is the best part of it, right?
Yep.
That just is the icing on the cake. That's what takes it from a,
The Ice Spice on the cake.
that's what takes it from a good headline song title to Christ-like. Like that's what just makes me I'm on board for life. This is the same month that Benny the Butcher put out an album. He has a song on there where he, has shit bars as well. They were going viral on Twitter recently too. So I just want to shout out Ice Spice. It's not like there's a lot to say about the song, but it's really fun. As you say, Jake, the beat's really, really hard. It sounds great, especially on headphones. It is built for TikTok, obviously. She's an
Yeah.
artist who garnered success on TikTok. She knows that market. She knows how to cater to it. She knows that she makes songs that are short and punchy, and where you get the bit very, very quickly. Basically, 90% of the lines are about how fat her ass is. And you know what? Big ups, respect. You know what I mean? I actually appreciate that because all her music videos, she's constantly twerking, constantly showing her ass, constantly it's ass, 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 ass. So to make a song that makes reference to shit and farts, while that is your thing, I think is, it's bold, it's daring, and I respect it because it's this kind of thing where no one would okay this because it's just like you're making fun of yourself, you're setting yourself up for you're risking ruining the one thing that you have, well, not the one thing, but you're risking ruining one of the biggest things that you have, so to speak, which is your ass and its popularity.
Immaculate
um
phrasing there, my friend.
you're risking ruining that by associating it with poop, and so to just do that anyway, just do that anyway, um and turn it into this, many people, artists, rappers, whoever have said something to the effect of, you think you're the shit, but you're really just a fart. And she just like doesn't care that that's played. She just says it.
I just like that she's an upstart and doesn't care and is making silly music. Like, you know what? Fine. We need more of this in the world. Everybody takes themselves way too goddamn seriously. So, like, we have this 2 minute long song where she has this really monotone flow. And you know what? Frankly, people have been successful for 10 years writing that same flow that she does using that same monotone. So, if you're angry about Ice Spice doing it and being successful, maybe do some personal probing to figure out why you're so bothered that she's doing it and not when everyone else is. So
Look,
sorry, not
That
sorry.
is precisely why I am bothered.
go off. What's your take on Ice Spice, Morgan?
I only have a take on this song, and I think the song sucks. Like, I really don't have much fuel in this tank, but it is so tired and like typical, and it has an enjoyable spirit about it, and it's delivered with gusto, so I can't fault it too much. But guys,
You think you're the shit? You ain't even a fart.
shut the fuck up.
It's yeah, I think that's a fair response equally. Let's move on to something very significant for us personally, which is the release of a new song from legendary emo stalwarts, Sunny Day Real Estate. Now, listen, rumors of a new album from Sunny Day Real Estate are greatly exaggerated. This song apparently originates from the How It Feels to Be Something On era. It was never released, and they did record it recently. It's not like a recording from 25 years ago they've dug up. They did get together in the studio to record this as a part of a 30th anniversary celebration of Diary. They're doing a tour to celebrate the 30th anniversary, and they're releasing, I think it's a live in the
Yes,
studio version of them playing that record
I think
um,
so.
30 years on. And so this song, which is called Novum Vetus, is sort of an accompaniment to that. Uh, but I want to clear up from the front that it's not like the lead single of the next new album. They're not like confirmed. That the thing is, we probably touched on this in our Sunday real estate video. I can't remember if I did or not, but they have been up, and obviously they're up and down as in terms of the internal coherency and stability of the band while they were together in the 90s. But even since their big breakup, or even since they last recorded an album and released an album, 2000's The Rising Tide, even since then, they have been in the studio multiple occasions, putting a record together. Famously, they recorded an album, I think, in 2009, and then ended up abandoning it. And just, it never got finished. So there's possibility that we could get new original music from Estiari in the future, but I wouldn't count your chickens on it. What I want to celebrate though is just the fact that this song is amazing. No
Hmm.
surprises, given that it is from the sessions of an album we did a record club on a few months ago that we collectively gave one of the strongest and most positive endorsements we've ever given any record. An amazing album.
Perfect marks.
So no surprises that this song that was written at that time would also be baller as shit. But it really is. What do you guys think of this? I mean, my brain is melted every time I listen to this. It's one of those things where I can't even articulate, what's great about it. I just hear Jeremy Enig's voice, uh, weathered as it is, but still so full of power. And I hear this band that are, churning into this, evolving 7 minute piece that feels so, obviously so of a piece of where they were in their final era of new music. But what do you guys think of this track?
These guys have been in various states of, disbanding for however long it's been now, and they're still better at this than you ever will be at anything. It's so clearly like from that how it feels to be something on era, or at least if it wasn't from that, it would be clearly be like the point of comparison that you would make having heard that album. So it's still very much that sound, but he sounds so much older and more weathered. And there's something about the weight of the passage of time in the whole thing that is like extraordinarily powerful.
Reminded me a little bit of newer era American football. It's not that they sound similar, although they're obviously both big emo bands, but just like that, I guess, emotional experience of hearing someone who you're so familiar with for the way they sounded in the late 90s on a particular album, hearing them like now, and it's clearly the same person, but age has kind of taken its toll. But the music is still beautiful and purposeful, and that's absolutely how this feels. I genuinely found myself getting physically overwhelmed by just the song, and that it existed and that I was hearing it and that it was like as good as it was. I could not have asked for anything more out of this. It's
Hmm.
never a guarantee that at a song after this amount of time, will live up to whatever sense of internal hype you have if it's a band that have meant a lot to you for a while. Uh, and and it did take me it took me back to what it felt like to listen to Diary as a 15-year-old kid, and I hadn't really heard anything like that. Um, yeah, it's a
Look
special
forward
song.
to this potentially being on our end of the year list.
It's a special song. Let's move into the two albums we're going to be talking about today. The first of which is one of which is from a legacy band that we have talked about before, that we have clearly established takes on. Although I'm acutely aware that I still need to upload the Insomniac Record Club that is sitting there.
Well, we also did 21st Century Breakdown back in the day.
So yeah, I had not forgotten about that. It's just there's stuff. Uh, so from one bit from a band that we have talked about before, and we've clearly established thoughts on, and also an album from a new act we've never talked about before that'll be very interesting to kind of bring into the world of jams and tea. But let's start off with the legacy band. Let's start off with Green Day, their new album Saviors, the follow-up to 2020's Immortal Father of All Motherfuckers, one of the worst albums of that year. We talked about it in our worst albums of 2020 video. Had a very funny, memorable segment on that. I remember having a lot of fun editing that together. At least something good came out of that. Green Day have been in a hellish cesspool of their own making for longer than many of us have been aware of them. So I feel it only appropriate to turn to you, Morgan, as the most stalwart and established Green Day disciple of the three of us. Certainly the person who's probably got the most hours and time put into this band.
It's
What's your
work.
take on? what they're doing here with Saviors. I mean, it's no secret that the bar was on the floor to better their last album. What are your thoughts on this new record, on what it represents for the band, and on how enjoyable you find Green Day to be now in 2024?
We are all so old. We, the three of us, and the three people that comprise Green Day, each of us ancient. And that is the primary takeaway of listening to Saviors for me. It is empirically an improvement over nearly everything they've done in the 20 years since American Idiot. And it is also boring. It's the most going through the motions Green Day album they've released in that 20 years. The simple fact of it is that they were in such a state that Spinning the Wheels album happens to be their best work in 20 years. The closest in quality that they've gotten to this was Revolution Radio, an album that I actually think has a couple highlights that are stronger than anything on here, but also some catastrophic lows that this never reaches.
Do you want to
Um,
be my girlfriend?
No.
I kind of like how he screams that, but
I just sung it like the fucking Frozen song for some
he
reason.
did. I wasn't I wasn't
You
gonna
really did.
wasn't gonna say anything, but it is passable, inoffensive, too long, sort of labored in places, and digestible.
I'll give them some compliments here. I did not find this really all that difficult to sit through, which I can't say about any of the other albums they've made after American Idiot, which I think, the Uno Dos and Tre albums, sitting through those is a chore. Revolution Radio is the closest they've come to this. I'd probably give it a similar score, but it's just an album where I find it way too frustrating to actively enjoy a lot of what it does correctly. And then, Father of All, which is to steal my favorite quote about this album from one of my favorite internet music personalities, Mike the Snare. This album is like if the Black Keys tried to cover Feel It Still 8 times. That's that album. And this has moments that I think are some of the strongest things they've put out in a while. I think that the best thing on here, head and shoulders, is the song Dilemma, which, this is not a top tier Green Day song. I really enjoy it though. Like it's perfectly within the pop punk power pop that you would find on one of their more maybe erratic albums like Nimrod, as like a palate cleanser for something weirder they would be doing. And it's fine. Like, and even lyrically I find it pretty compelling. And there are moments on here where lyrically I do actually think that Billy, channels something, and as a performer he's still pretty good. That said, I don't want to hear Green Day talk about Instagram. I don't want to hear Green Day talk about feeds. I don't want to hear them talk about any of this shit, not just because they're old, but because they don't do it well. And they do it a lot on here because this is very much an album that frames itself within a modern context. And in my opinion, does nothing but suffer because of it. Like the opener, The American Dream is Killing Me, is like again, musically, I guess this is perfectly fine, but lyrically, it's fucking insufferable. There is of course the now infamous part on it where he calls himself a pedophile, which I think he's trying to do like the shit stirring that they did on American Idiot, where like, oh my god, he called himself a faggot. Except it's like, okay, I see where you're headed here. Maybe you should have backed up a couple spaces though, because that is not it, Chief. And there are moments. Look, Ma, No Brains. That single. I think this is a perfectly enjoyable standard 6 out of 10 Green Day song, and I think that about things like Coma City, which is fun, upbeat, energetic. Susie Chapstick is silly, and I kind of enjoy listening to it. That, you know, though it has its moments that make me not entirely regret sitting through it and be like, okay, there's something here. But there is still way too much inessential material on here where they lean into the sugary sweetness of the power pop that they've pursued, and they do it to just, I mean, unfortunate results. Like American Dream is killing me. No, thank you. Corvette Summer, absolutely the fuck not. The title track on here, Saviors, fucking wet fart ass limp dick ending to this album. Saviors and Fancy Sauce. Why are they here? Like I just ended on Father to a Son, which I don't even think is a great song, but like you're ending it on the weepy Green Day ballad. That makes sense to me. And I think the overriding conclusion I came to with this album is that it's just like it is in some respects a return to form for the band, but it also shows you how anachronistic Green Day are in a lot of ways because they're trying to be Green Day again, but in a modern context. And I just kind of discovered that I don't really think that works anymore. This whole, like, they're doing Dookie again, but for the 2020s. And that level of naive, sort of disaffected teenage ennui, it just doesn't suit this climate anymore. Like the things that Billy is actively trying to talk about on here, it feels like he is diminishing all of them. And whatever you want to say about the incisiveness of albums like American Idiot or whatever, is that there is an authenticity and a passion to what they're talking about on those records. Is it super nuanced? No, but I feel it. On here, there's just no sense of stakes. There's no real way I feel like this band is interested on elaborating on what they're talking about in a way that will feel in any way vital. And they don't have to do that to make good music, but that's why this feels so like underwhelming despite the fact that it is an okay-ish album. So it's in a weird place with me. Like I don't hate it or even dislike it at all. I just feel like we've arrived at the end where it's like Green Day, we need to hang up the coats. We need to retire this band. We're not saying anything new anymore. We're not doing anything interesting. Nobody's really getting along with this anymore. Maybe we need to move on.
I'm in a pretty similar position. I think I probably have more positive feelings than even antipathy towards this album. There are some songs I do really like. I mean, Dilemma is a really good song. Quite like Father to a Son, even though it is the weepy ballad. I just feel like I found it to be genuinely affecting. Coma City, I think is a really strong track. Just sounds really good. I like this record a little bit more than Revolution Radio because I think the record sounds a little bit better
I
than
do too.
Revolution Radio. And part of that, of course, is can be attributed to the reteam with Rob Cavallo for the first time. And is it since the trilogy they did? I can't even remember.
I think it's since Revolution Radio.
He only produced one song on Revolution Radio. So I think it's been
Hmm.
a long time since
That
since
makes
it was a
sense.
proper collaboration for the album. The most interesting notable thing I had to say about this album when I listened to it was my observation that the riff in One-Eyed Bastard is exactly the riff from Pink's So What?
No,
Like
no, no,
I'm
no, no,
serious.
no, 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 no.
It's just same riff. Like, okay, you've actually
No different.
the one thing that Green Day have done is they've pitched it down a little bit and they've slightly decreased the melodic variance. So it just sounds basically they've made it worse. They've made it sound more monotone
A little
than
bit.
So What riff, but it is the same rhythm, it's the same cadence. Max Martin, You Are Not. And it's a sad day when I have to give a riff writing, like a guitar riff writing credit to Max Martin over Green Day, even though I'm on the record as not being one of the biggest Green Day fans in the world. Look, I didn't hate listening to this. It's a listenable Green Day album in 2024, and that's you can take that to the bank,
That's
you know.
good.
It's like it's a sign that society is rebuilding. So we'll
It's an
take it.
election year,
Things
baby. Green Day are
things
back.
things are looking up.
I do like
This
though that the kid on the cover is with something
That
about
is a
this
hilarious album cover.
I kind of love the album cover.
yeah, it's a good album cover, but my point is something about the smirk and the shrug just perfectly captures how I feel about the album. It's like
Yes.
I'm shrugging, but I'm not annoyed. I'm just kind of like,
No,
I
like
guess.
it's on fire.
It's like
Car's on fire and there is no driver.
Of course, it turned out this way.
this image is like the personification of, I guess. It's just perfect for the album. All right, let's move
True.
on to the last album we're going to be discussing today. It is the sophomore record from California-based emo band. I'm guessing, yeah, they're emo. They get talked about in emo circles. They get referred to in the context of modern emo. I'm going to go with emo. Although, if you've heard the album, you'll understand my reticence because it's kind of hard to quantify what this band is. They're part The Strokes, they're part Mr. Bungle, they're part World is a Beautiful Place that I'm Alone Afraid to Die. They're part, like, they've got their fingers in so many different, not even influences, but just kind of like expressions of what I think is a kind of an underlying feeling that a lot of these bands are united by, even as though they sound different. The band is Glass Beach. The new album is Plastic Death. Insert your gorillas joke here. Good, it's done. We've done it. It's done. We don't need to go down that line. I have been familiar with Glass Beach for a while, although I haven't been actively following them or certainly not one of their biggest fans. It wasn't really until a couple of months ago that I even listened to their first album in full, although I had heard a couple of songs on it and liked them. Glass Beach are to emo what Sweet Trip are to dream pop, in the sense that they're like this band that have purely cultivated this popularity through online spaces and communities like Say It With Me Kids, Rate Your Music. And as much as I roll my eyes at us kind of referencing Rate Your Music so often, sometimes there are just bands where that is the platform where they've achieved a lot of their success. And that's certainly the case for Glass Beach. Um, not solely that, but what Rate Your Music represents in 2024 is the kind of community that really rides for a band like Glass Beach and has kind of pushed them up. Discord as well. They have very active Discord community, and it's a whole thing. And then they fit in well with a kind of a legion of bands like Black Country New Road and Black Midi as well, who you can feel like a kind of shared DNA there in terms of the way they approach prog, so to speak, in the 2020s. So yeah, a lot going for this band. They feel like they fit very squarely in the kind of wheelhouse of bands we talk about. Even if we don't always agree on them, they feel like, they are the kind of thing we need to discuss. And so that was my approach going into this ahead of the release, was like, okay, Glass Beach are coming back with their first new album in 5 years. It's been cooking for that long because I read an interview that Ian Cohen did with Jay McClendon, the front person of this band. So yeah, all of that context had me quite looking forward to, like, okay, cool, it's going to be really cool to listen to this and discuss it. What I wasn't expecting, and in retrospect, this feels like my own typical self-naivety, because it's not really all that surprising in retrospect, but I wasn't expecting to be as taken with this as I am. It's a great record. I think I would go as far as to say that of what I've heard, there's some more obscure shit that I know that you people like you, Jake, and other friends of ours are really into that I haven't heard yet. But from what I've heard, I think this is the first great album of 2024, at least, in terms of music culture, I suppose. I don't know. It's a great record. I really enjoy it. I was really taken with how full of surprises this album is, how it really pulls out the stops to not just kind of pilfer from its influences, but to kind of meld them into this kind of Frankenstein's monster that feels very different. I'm really taken with Jamie Clenden's lyricism, which I think is really clever, incisive, smart, maybe a little too intellectual for some, but it has a kind of broadness to it, a kind of, interesting level of layers to it that feels distinct from a lot of personal life based songwriting of other big sort of Zoomer indie bands. But really the big thing was just the sound of this record, which continually impressed me. It's a firestorm whirlwind of an album. It's a long record. It's an hour plus. Some of the songs can feel quite long. Sometimes you can't quite tell where one song ends and another one begins because they can flow into each other really nice, like Rare Animal and Cul-de-sac do that, to give one example. But yeah, I can be read for filth on this because it's so up my alley. But I recognized early on that it might be a bit more of a challenging, or not challenge, but maybe just a bit more of a proposition for you two in various different ways. So I'm curious, what are your guys' take on Glass Beach from your limited exposure, and what do you think of this album in particular?
I like how you led off with us saying like we shouldn't make the gorillas joke when for a full like 2 days I'd never heard of this band before, and for some reason I thought that they were Glass Animals at first, and I was like, oh no, I don't like that Heat Wave song. But then color me surprised when I turn on the album and am greeted by the opener, Coelacanth, which starts off with this really like jazzy chordal nonsense thing happening in its first half, and I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck is this? And then the second half, which just fucking explodes, and I was like, okay, I think I might be on board with this. Lo and behold, I'm very on board with this. I think the coolest thing about it is just all of these songs are so structurally audacious that I was continually in the process of being surprised all the time when listening to this. You already threw out some reference points that I definitely see in here. The two that I kept coming back to were actually Sunny Day Real Estate, funnily enough, particularly everything after Diary, like the weirder, mathier slash like, alternative rock sort of vaguer sound that they explored on stuff like How It Feels to Be Something On, and the Dismemberment Plan. Both in,
Yeah,
again, how
D-Plan.
mathy and weird it is, but also in like the lead singer's vocal presence is very, very comparable to that of Dismemberment Plan. So like there's a lot of reference points on here that I think made this easy for me to get on board with. But then it just manages to do so many things that I found so captivating and surprising. I mean, like the 1-2 punch of Motions and Slip Under the Door is so fucking amazing, man. Like Motions is just an absolute indie rock banger to end them all. And then Slip Under the Door is a slightly more dynamic song that just sort of shifts between this kind of loud, quiet dynamic until it gets to the fucking end where it has this absolutely ridiculous, fucking filthy alt metal breakdown. It is sensational. It sounds huge. There's not a moment on this album that feels particularly predictable or typical. It feels like every step of the way the band are trying to surprise you, but they also never threw me for a loop. I was never in a mode where I was like, I don't understand what they're doing on here, just because this is a weirdly kind of progressive release, like at least in spirit, maybe not in sound, but lots of instrumental details. Like there's a lot of sugary instrumentation on here that I found really surprising, as well as like just so many moments where they manage to sound like they are pulling instrumental reference points from like totally different bands and eras and all that stuff together and just flawlessly synthesizing it into this wholly unique vision. And I love it whenever like pianos come on to this album and they kind of glisten on the edges of the
They
mixes. It
sound
actually kind of
great.
reminds me of how Animal Collective utilized the piano
Oh
in
well,
their
tell you
2000
what,
stuff.
you brought it up, so I will say that Jay has some screaming on "Slip Under the Door," I think is the song in particular, where it's like this is so
AV.
AV tier coded, like
Yep.
whoa. And maybe that's like
Hey,
a,
hey, hey. It's
and it's
like
a
that.
little,
It's the exact
it's
same
like
thing.
it's a little like it's a small thing, and then maybe it's a bit random to bring up, but while very distinct and different and all that kind of shit. There's a certain like there's a certain legacy of band, I guess, or legion of band that meld and kind of innovate and create their own space in this sort of freaky, postmodern indie realm. And this is
Hmm.
a very loose connection, admittedly, but like Animal Collective are one of those bands, and Glass Beach, in their own way, are one of those bands too. I mean, Animal Collective did that with kind of what was in the early 2000s a scene called freak folk, where it was this like
Yes.
really avant-garde experimentation with folk music and kind of just pushing things into this performance art space. And so they started from that template, and then they like, built it up into like, what if we augmented this with bright sounding guitars and noise machines and keyboards, and what if we just took this thing and then just kind of layered on new stuff to it and built it up into something so much like bigger than what it initially was. And Glass Beach kind of do that with the template of kind of fifth wave Midwest emo, like 2010s Midwest emo, is they kind of start from that And then they kind of build on layers and layers of, reference points from prog as well. I know they've cited like Yes and Rush as being inspirations while writing these songs.
Hmm.
But also like all kinds of like, bizarro modern sort of indie rock and alternative, influences as well. And they just kind of build it up into this like kind of beast creation. And that's the thing that really kind of kept disarming me about this album is how it would so frequently pull in different directions from one song to another. And that really kind of took me for a loop. I mean, Slip Under the Door is a great kind of example song because it pulls in different directions within itself so much. You've mentioned the kind of flooring metal breakdown at the end of it, but also like it has this funky swagger to it that feels so catchy and addictive and strange. I bring up Mr. Bungle, and I feel like that's almost like in some senses, that's kind of like a cop out reference point because, anything that
Hmm.
sounds wacko wild all over the place, just bring out Mr. Bungle, right?
With
But
like
it's
Mr.
like,
Bungle.
but it's more like specifically California era Mr. Bungle when like a lot of that wildness was kind of tamed or like tuned into this sort of sun-soaked, fried, drug-addled stupor. And this record feels like it captures that really well as well. It's the kind of album where
Hmm.
hearing a clean guitar, like at the start of Guitar Song, is the kind of thing that throws you, even though it's the most
Yeah.
sounding thing. I've got more thoughts to go on this, but I want to throw to Morgan at this point since we haven't heard from you as well. What was it like to have this hoisted at you, and what's your take on this band and this album?
Not at all dissimilar to how these recording sessions usually go. There's at least one thing on the new releases that I recognize, or at least the name of, if not overly familiar with, at least recognize the name of it, and something I've never fucking heard of in my life that you may as well have made up for all I know. Um, it's, I get that you're all young and Gen Z and whatnot, but fucking capitalize your album and band name. Grow up. Um,
That's such a petty grievance. I'm sorry.
yes, but I can't. This is like maybe it is just it gives a similar feeling to like what was the last Black Country New Road album called?
Ants from up there.
Where I listen to it and I'm just like this is maybe just too Gen Z for me. Um, which is I am the youngest person here, so it's funny to make that complaint.
Yeah,
Um,
it's one of the things I
That's
love
true.
about this dynamic is you are the youngest, but also the most curmudgeonly.
yeah, there's so many things about the album that I should like, and I just absolutely don't. But if it's your thing, it appears to be doing very well, and good for them. Beautiful gowns.
Great gowns. I will
Great
say,
gowns.
I when I did listen to their first album a couple months ago, I really enjoyed it. I do think this is a considerable step up. And I think part of it is to do with the fact that as a record, I think it plays a little bit better. It's an album that I think has got a really animated pace to it, despite the fact that these songs are often quite lengthy and structurally audacious is a polite way of putting it, as you chose, Jake, but you could also say unwieldy. Um, Sometimes, and I can see a lot of perspectives on and understand a lot of perspectives on this. I know some people who were really, big Glass Beach fans have been in the tank for them for a long time are kind of underwhelmed by this sometimes. I've seen some of that as well. I've seen a whole host of reactions to this. And I do feel like that, especially for Jake and myself, our enjoyment of this is certainly, I think, a benefit of them being such a fresh band for us. But yeah, I really was just so taken aback by how the songs I really loved, and you know, there's not a song in here I don't love, to be fair, but the songs that really, connected with me on a deeper level, all did that in very different ways. Rare Animal, I think, is well, no, actually, it's my second favorite song on the album. I'll get to my favorite in a bit, but Rare Animal is a special one because uh, it was the moment where the album, like I was loving it up to that point. Motions is an incredible banger. That's one of the few songs that this week that I haven't been able to get out of my head, and it's not even just any kind of hook, it's just the sound of it. That and the synth is just so addictive to me. But Rare Animal was the moment the album like really just clicked on a different level for me. And it was just because the song utilizes one of the tropes that I am just a fucking sucker for, which is bringing in the gang vocal, going full world is a beautiful place and I'm no longer afraid to die. The song builds and builds itself, cuts out to silence, and then explodes. And then you think, oh my God, the song is just leveled up. And then, like 20 seconds after it explodes, they bring in the gang vocals, and it feels like, it's a fucking getting sodas moment for me, except it's like 10 times faster than that. It just blew me away. And I was like, this band are all about capturing an energy like that, capturing a kind of fire. And if I were to pick apart Jay McClendon's lyricism, on this record, themes of sort of social decay, but like not in a kind of hyper modern online way, but in a kind of history of mankind way. There's a lot of melding evolutionary history in the writing on this album. There's a lot of allusions to uh the animal kingdom and the ways that we're not so different, but obviously explored in more interesting ways than what I just said, and some really striking images throughout the record that capture a sense of dissatisfaction at how overly organized and constructed and destructive to human beings the imposed systems that we live under are. you know I think those ideas are explored in really abstract, poetic ways that come across really affectingly. But really, the whole thing just zings from front to back. There are some gorgeous strings in The Killer, which really, really stand out to me. The CIA, which is another one of the big singles for the album, has an absolute stomp to it that I really, really like. Comatose, the penultimate track here, is a 9-minute epic that builds beautifully and kind of deconstructs itself in the back half, but then ends really, really strong as well. However, the best song here for me, the reason why I think this is a capital G great album is because it surprises and delights the whole way through, and then it just sticks the landing so hard with Comatose, as I mentioned, and Abyss Angel, the closer in here, which is my favorite song. You mentioned the piano, Jake. It sounds gorgeous here.
Mm.
It's piano led, and you think, okay, this is going to be an introspective ballad to end the record off. But really, that's just the beginning. The song builds from the piano and becomes something so lush and vibrant and emotionally riveting. Oh, I am I'm overwhelmed by this record in a lot of different ways, and I'm not going into it with a lot of intellectual depth and density. I think if you want that, Professor Sky just put up a great video on this album. Check that out. But primally, this record hit me on a very particular level. And Abyss Angel in particular was just like it was a dagger through to the heart. It's one of my favorite songs of the year so far. I know not a lot of competition yet, but it's up there. I love how little I understand this record. Like I understand superficially like some of the topics that it's going for and some of the reference points, but I feel like this nut is still being cracked internally, and I feel like it might take the whole year to really find out like what I feel about it. Because I know I feel a lot of things while listening to this, but they're so hard to unpack that I don't really know what the grander thing is, if that makes any sense. It's just an album I find an absolute delight to listen to. It's exciting, it's challenging. It gives me the sense of enjoyment that I get from so many different bands and genres in one place, in a way that doesn't feel like a total mess. It's also a thing where, and I'm curious to know if you feel this way as well, Jake. It's a thing where it's like Glass Beach are pulling in so many different directions on this thing, but I do feel like when I listen to this, I understand what kind of band they are. I understand what kind of music they're trying to make, and I can recognize each and every single one of these songs as being the work of the same band, even though they do pull in so many different directions. That's the ultimate triumph of it, I think, is that clearly they worked on it for a very long time. They have a lot of love that's put into it as well. Reading that interview with Jay was quite refreshing as well because they have a really and the band as a whole as well have a really like they're not super invested in how well this does. They work for and make their records for the love of being able to make them, and they have a sense of what their audience wants for them, but they have no sense of obligation to that. And a lot of what this record is them kind of trying to challenge their audience, I gather. Um, so there's a streak of pure, unfiltered, and uncompromised creative willpower that this album carries that I think really makes it exceptional, um, and imbues it with a spirit of confidence that I think is one of the things that can really unlock it for you. Because if you don't quite get it, you can feel that it's done with intent and purpose and dedication. It's not just the kind of thing with where a lesser band would explore all these different sounds to explore all these different sounds. Everything feels like it's in its right place with this album, and so yeah, I think it's great. Oh, okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode today. I think we've covered a lot of good ground. We've really broadened the spectrum of music so far, but let us know what you have been listening to, what's been out recently that you want us to talk about in the future as well. We'll try to keep our finger on the pulse too. Let us know your thoughts on any of these albums, songs, or the Oscar stuff as well. In the comments below, I want to hear from you and continue the conversation there. Until next time, though, folks, rock over London, rock on Chicago, Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'.